All right, we are live. Welcome back to Getting Real. This is a show where we strip away the highlight reel and talk about what's really behind success. I'm your host, Monique Hom, and today's guest is someone who doesn't just talk about big ideas, she builds them. Vandana Puranik is a global strategist, best-selling author, speaker, and the founder of Active Ingredients Inc. And this is what she said, a co-creator collective for women. She's helped brands grow by 60% in 1 month and has spoken at Harvard, Oxford, and TEDx. And today she's here to help you break through whatever feels impossible. I'm super excited to have her here. Welcome, Vandana.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
So excited to have you. So your story is incredible. Your bio says you've spent 25 years distilling chaos into clarity. Okay, let's start there. How do you approach chaos? What's your first move when everything feels messy?
Gosh, and tell me we haven't all been through that, right? So I think, obviously you want to get to a place where you're organized, but one of the things that I find is really missing when people are in that mode is because of one major principle. So this happened to me when I was doing all of the consulting and freelance work that I did. And what I realized is that there are so many of us brilliantly solving the wrong problem. So if you're always solving the wrong problem and doing it over and over again, it's not going to lead you anywhere. So the first principle that I would say that we have to embrace is solving for the outcome, not the problem. It takes you down a very different path.
Wow.
And you ask very different questions. You have very different, next steps. You have very different people that you're going to speak to. It's quite a different journey. And I would say that's the first thing that I would suggest that people do.
That's amazing. All right, let's dive into that. Give me an example. So, and if you, just give me an example. I'm in real estate, I'm investing, and I feel totally stuck, don't know what the F to do. And I'm in how do I go from solving for the outcome instead of the problem?
So I think a lot of times people will try to solve what they think the problem is. And I would shy away from any problems whatsoever. And I would say, what is the net outcome that I want to achieve? So for me, I'll take a very simple example, and, this is partly real estate, but it has to do with weeds. So the example is that, let's say you're a gardener, you're tending this beautiful yard, and you want to make sure the house is looking great because people are coming in for a showing. So, and they come in day after day after day, right? Hopefully not that many days because you'll sell it quickly. But in the event that you're trying to make the garden look really beautiful, you want to make sure you pull all the weeds, right? So every day you go out there and pull the weeds and pull the weeds and pull the weeds. And the next day they pop up again. So the problem is that you're solving the problem, so to speak, but you're not solving for the outcome. So what is the actual cause of why the weeds are coming up, and can I stop them from coming up at all, such that you don't keep trying to solve the same problem over and over again and waste your time, because it's not worth spending all that time. That's a really simplistic example, but this is actually what happens in so many cases. There's tons of examples out there like that. But I find that the weeds example really highlights, it's like, you just keep pulling weeds every day. And it's like, man, I gotta stop that. Like, I should have stopped that in the first place. Tell me when you finally ended up finding a great solution to something. You didn't think like, why didn't I think of this earlier? Or why didn't I do this earlier? Right?
Okay.
So many times.
It sounds to me and that it is kind of about the root cause. But you're saying, it's not even about the problem of the weeds. It's the outcome.
It's the outcome. You want to have a garden that looks beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So what are all the steps that you need to do to take a garden look beautiful? Do you have to feed it? Do you have to mulch it? Do you have to, have a spray on it for weeds? Do you have to whatever all the processes are that you have to go through? And all of a sudden it's a completely transformed outcome.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Let me ask you, okay, you've worked with huge multinationals and
Mhm,
scrappy entrepreneurs. What do
mhm.
you think is a common thread between them? What's like a really common struggle?
I think, hmm, well, we've already talked about one of them, which is not solving for the outcome, always trying to, use the try to putting out fires as opposed
Mhm.
to stopping the fire in the first place. So that definitely is one of the big things. I also think that sometimes we live in a state of almost like holding our breath. And the reason I say that is because I've completely transformed myself with this one skill. And the skill is living in curiosity.
Mm.
And I think if we just allow ourselves the idea of being more curious, number one, you're never going to get caught up in anything because you're just constantly discovering and you're open minded. Number two, you never get angry because you never have any expectations and you don't, you're not disappointed in others. So even when we're in conflict, for example, if I say to you, like, okay, we're going to agree to disagree. First of all, what the hell does that mean? Because I have no idea. Second of all, if I said to you instead, I said, you know what, Monique, I totally didn't see it your way. I didn't see getting there that way at all. Now I'm really curious. Like, tell me how you got there because I really want to learn. What does that do? It takes you from, being sort of, antagonistic to being very collaborative, and it changes your whole relationship. Um, the other thing with curiosity is that it's completely non-judgmental. It's a passive skill, and quite frankly, it's a strategic skill. So
Yeah.
if you focus on, being curious more than just trying to say like this is what the situation is and this is how we're going to solve it, you become if you don't get past that, you become cognitively rigid. And that's really hard to get past, right? Like think about all the difficult bosses that you've had,
Yeah.
right? Or all the difficult clients that you might have had. It's because they can't live in a state of curiosity, and I think that has the ability to change everything. I really do. Um, and it's funny because one of the examples that I often talk about is so I have breast cancer, and not that long ago I was in a coma, and my coma, my ICU team of 10, medical staff was phenomenal. And one of the things that they did is kind of going along with the curiosity thing is they embraced intellectual humility. So
Mm.
realizing that you don't know everything. And I think, sometimes we expect our bosses or ourselves or, if we're the kind of people who put pressure on ourselves to know everything and we better have all the answers. And oftentimes we don't. And like, if you look at my case, that's probably one of the reasons I'm alive today is because all these amazing, doctors around the world are working on my case to keep me alive. And I was very severe. And, you know, all of a sudden a technician from Singapore speaks up and says, when we tried this way in Singapore, it seemed to work better. And my doctor, instead of, kind of brushing it off as like, no, we've already tried that. Or no, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever. She turned around and said, you know what? Tell me more. I recognize that I don't know everything. And so I think, when we talk about the sort of the commonalities, those are really the three things. Is making sure we solve for the outcome, making sure we're always in a state of curiosity, and making sure we embrace intellectual humility.
Mm.
And I think those are very common no matter where you go. And it's not just businesses, it's relationships, it's, organizations, it's associations, it's girlfriends, it's everywhere.
I love that. Solving for the outcome, living in curiosity, which is being curious is one of them, like two. hallmarks of a highly creative person.
Mm.
So it's when you start to ask questions, that's what opens up the creativity and the solutions. And then that intellectual humility, which I think also has that as well, because then you're not, it's like, no, this is the only way it can go. I know it, everything, but just to go.
What kind of pressure are you putting on yourself by doing
I know.
that, right? You can't be a happy camper doing that. And I'm like, why did we not learn this before? Like, why weren't we raised this way? Right.
Well, school teaches us that we need to have the answers.
Yeah.
It
School
doesn't
is,
teach us to ask questions. It doesn't teach us to be curious. You get A's because you have the right answers.
yeah.
And I wish that there was more, no, let's make you ask better questions.
Yeah.
You're more curious. Let's embrace that not knowing. As
It's
opposed,
interesting that
yeah.
we can get on a whole tangent about the educational system. But one of the things that I will say is that there are many things that are so critical in our lives that we're never taught, especially in school. Things like financial management,
Yes.
things like mindfulness and coping skills. But the one skill that has the ability to change everything is creative problem solving. Because you use it no matter where you go or what you do, you always use that skill. And it literally has the ability to change everything. Whether you use it in mindfulness or, if you're trying to farm something or if you're trying to sell real estate or if you're trying to, get into the school board, everywhere you go. That's been my experience. And I've seen a lot of change because of that. So,
Yeah. Ah, well, I would love to have some changes on now people are educated, but
yeah.
I want to talk about, and I know a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and y'all, if you are investing in real estate, that's an entrepreneurial venture, right? So, for entrepreneurs tuning in, what do you think is a core ingredient every brand needs to succeed right now?
So I'm going to be very clear about this because I have done brand strategy for the last 25, 30 years. And I'm going to say one statement, and that should open it up for you quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a brand, you have a commodity. But most people don't know what a brand is. A brand is not a colorful logo and you slap a slogan on and hey, there you go. A brand is actually a relationship that you have with your end user or your customer. So, and most of that, because it's a relationship, it's actually an intangible benefit. So what I mean by that is, and I use this example every now and then, it's like McDonald's is not in the business of flipping burgers. It's not actually in the business of real estate either, but it is. So we won't go there. But if you really think about McDonald's and you think about the commercials and you think about how you feel when you go there and you think about, the kind of it's almost like a safety and belonging and happiness and joy. Like it's like a feeling where people can gather together in happiness, right? That's what they're in the business of.
Yeah.
Disney is another great example. So Disney's motto is not that we want to build a bunch of theme parks.
Happiest place on earth.
Right? That's right. They want to create a place on earth that is so amazing that you're going to want to come back and bring a friend. It's that pull that you feel when you think of Disney, like you just want to go there, right? Like it draws you. Those are all, I talk about American Express, I talk about IKEA, I talk about so many other examples. When somebody says to you IKEA, Swedish for common sense, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not about, building furniture that you don't know how it works at the end of the day or having really difficult time navigating furniture construction. It's really about, hey, I did this on my own and I figured it out and I created a home for myself. It's about that hominess that you've created because of you.
Yes.
It's like American Express. Don't leave home without us. Well, why is that? Because nobody can match what we offer.
Mm. What's one myth about brand building that you love to bust?
It's not easy. People think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a brand strategy and create a brand and stuff, do it right away. But my personal perspective is if you do it right the first time, you never have to do it again. And a brand strategy itself, so building the brand strategy is what the most important thing is. That's where you should spend your money, not on all the creative ideas that are going to come out. Because when you have a brand strategy, not only does it provide you direction for all the stuff that you want to participate in, so it's awesome to be able to say no to things, and your brand strategy will allow you to do that. Say, I want to do this, this, and this, and as entrepreneurs, we want to do everything, because we really don't know what works necessarily. So we want to try a bunch of different things, but if it's not on strategy, you don't do it. It also acts as a litmus test to say this does or does not make sense. And so when you have that strategy done, you're in a completely different level than anybody else out there. There are so many entrepreneurs out there that are hit or miss. They try different things. They, it's like, got to take action, which I love. But I always say, intention was a really big word. Intention without action is nothing. So we got kind of all jumped on this action thing. But the taking action without having the right direction is even worse. But if you have intention plus action plus the right direction, then you actually have acceleration. That's the way I look at it. So I think, it's not an easy thing, and it's not immediate. But, if you spend a couple of days doing it and really spend those days just focused on it, you can get it done, and it will make a complete difference in your business. I've seen businesses completely catapult. I mean, you've read my results, but businesses completely turn around.
Yeah. Okay, let's break this down like we're talking to a 10-year-old. What is, you're telling a fifth grader, what is a brand strategy?
So a brand strategy is made up of 3 parts, essentially. There's other parts, but the crux of it is 3 parts. The first part is, how do you want people to feel at the end of the day when they come into contact with your product? That's the brand benefit. The second part is, why should anybody believe that you can deliver on that benefit? Why should anybody believe that that benefit is even achievable by what you do? So what are the reasons to believe? And these are tangible. These are the tangible things. So your qualifications, your experience, your, whatever it is, your expertise. And the third thing is the brand character. And the brand character is, if your brand was a person, what are all the adjectives that you use to describe it?
Okay.
So effervescent, intriguing, lively, joyful, playful, trusted, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you're not looking for laundry lists of stuff. There's only one benefit at the end of the day. There's only 3 to 5 reasons to believe. 3 is far better than 5, in my opinion. And there's only maybe 5 descriptors that you want for your character. No more than that, because then it gets overwhelming. And of course, the part that comes after that is, how are you going to differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
Right? Because people talk about unique selling proposition and stuff all the time using fancy words, but it's all about differentiation. Even when I launched my group, when I launched, what she said, to me, it wasn't enough to have just another, women's group out there. We grow businesses and we get results, and we do it in a very different way that you can't find anywhere else. Otherwise, what's the point of you coming to me, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that. So let's talk about This Is What She Said. I know you recently launched that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what it is and what inspired it.
So I've always wanted to do something for women, and I think we've all heard the stats. We've all heard that women get less funding, women are not in senior positions enough, so on and so forth. I think the way we look at the data is not accurate. So I'm not going to talk about those stats. But principally, we know that when women rise, society rises. And that's been proven time and time again. If you look at the countries that are actually doing really well, most of those are run by women, as an example. I've always wanted to do something to lift women because I think we're the most underutilized resource that the world has. So I started with that thought. And then, as I went through my whole medical experience, it kind of went on the back burner. But then after I came out of my coma, one thing that happened a while ago came flooding to the forefront again. And that was a story that happened with my two older kids. He was 6, she was 7. He was having behavioral issues. So we met with his teacher. And she said, yeah, it makes sense because you know what? He's testing at a high school level for math and a university level for reading comprehension. So we were like, oh, okay. Not thinking much of it because guess what? Our daughter was exactly the same. So we had no comparison. We didn't know that whether this was good or bad or enough or not or whatever you want to call it. But we decided to have them both tested and by a psychologist. And he came out and he said, I can count on one hand kids as bright as yours. And this is not about bragging about my kids. There's a point to this story. He said, what are you going to do for your son? I said, well, this is great. Now we have the paperwork to put him into a program that's appropriate for him and we can fast track him through the school board. What are you going to do for your daughter? You know what? She creates happiness wherever she goes. She's doing really well. She has tons of friends. She finds a way to work around things and make things happen. And, so why try to fix something that ain't broke? And then he turned around and said to us, that's exactly why you need to push for her. Because this is what happens to women and girls all the time. So that kind of lit a fire under me to say, okay, I got to do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do something. And I interviewed about 200 women around the world and found out that they were interested in 3 things. Honesty, brutal honesty, but brutal kindness.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to do to grow my business. Tell me what I need to do to change. Tell me what I need to do to grow as a human being, but do it with the most noble intentions and the kindest of words.
Yeah.
Second thing was visibility. So it's not just the speaking and the writing and the podcast guesting and the podcast hosting and, whatever it is. It's not just all the tangible stuff. It was more about when she walks into a room, she stands in her own light. She stands there she says what she has to say with self-respect. People will turn around and say what she said. That's why the group is called What She Said. And the third thing was this idea about, whatever happens in the posse. So the tagline is, we're a posse of bad bitches doing great things. And so the posse is kind of our nickname for the group. And so whatever happens in the posse stays in the posse. We have each other's backs and we do, what we have to do to protect and protect the group and each other. But still, I didn't think that was enough because you can probably synthesize, a couple of different groups and come to the same conclusion. So what we did instead is I started this thing where every time somebody joins, she's put into a squad of 5 to 7 people. That squad is responsible for growing her business. Very different than accountability when you and I are accountable to each other, because if we don't do something, we just push it off until the next week. In this situation, people are accountable to the other person to grow their business. So you can't not do it.
Yeah.
But it also narrows down the focus, because you and I might promise each other, 7 million things that we're going to do. And we do all of like 2, not 2 million, 2. But in this case, you already narrow it down because people can't do a ton of stuff for you, you know, all the time.
Love that.
So it's a completely different way of growing businesses and doing it with women. And this is so, like, it's poetic for women, because we always want to help each other. We always we want to have that social side. We want to see each other grow. Nobody's got this crab mentality. And I will tell you, in all honesty, we're pretty protective of who joins the group. So I can honestly say to you that every single person that's part of this group has been vetted through me, which is another important element, and is not invited to join unless I ask them to, or they're recommended by somebody else. So it's very, it's a really cool group. And I'm not looking at, exploding the growth or anything like that, because I'm not transactionally minded. I'm relationship minded. So it's just a very different approach. And I think people think I'm crazy because they think, like, man, if you put the price down to like $9.99, it'll be a blue light special and you'll get like 1,000 people joining. And it's like,
I don't want that. Yeah.
That's not me. And it could be great for other people, but that's not me. And there's a reason for why it's not. So that's what we did. And we have 50 amazing women, and growing, but gently growing as time goes on, and we see fit and the right people come along. And if they are interested, I'm more than happy to share.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
What is your message for a woman who feels like she has to do it all alone?
First of all, I can empathize, because I know I felt that way. But I think about my group, and I think there is so much joy and camaraderie. There is no more competition. It's just collaboration and camaraderie. And there's no, I don't know what else to say other than, surround yourself with really good people. That's all it takes. And quite frankly, we all need to grow up a bit, right? Like, we're not in high school anymore. So sometimes it's giving ourselves that tough love. But I do firmly believe, so I'm a very positive and a very strong person. And I firmly believe that so much of our success is driven by our mind and the way we think. And that's why I'm so hell-bent on making sure that we become smarter thinkers and better decision makers and swifter decision makers. Because I think that can revolutionize where we go from here.
So good. Yeah, I love what you're doing. It feels like, and you're definitely a soul sister. What you're creating, it's very similar to, I think, what we have at Real Estate Investor Houses and that real estate investment space.
Yeah.
And it's the value of the sisterhood, the community, having like this, like, beautiful, loving honesty.
Yes.
And then just like helping you to visible. So I love what you're doing. So for women who want to learn more about you and what you're up to, where should they go to find out more?
So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. The second place to find me is on thisiswhatshesaid.com.
Okay. All right.
And the third place is, I've just launched a book, or I'm actually launching a book. And that event is coming up on June the 12th at 4 p.m. And that landing page is called The Book of Might. So if you go there, you can sign up for the launch. And it's all about thinking and how we think differently. And, it's called Might because it's a double entendre. Might as in power to solve the impossible, and might as in possibility. So how might we solve this? So knowing where you go where nothing seems to work. And so it's all about it's all about that. It's all about the might that you have and how you can get around pretty much anything.
Incredible. Okay, we'll put that in the notes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. It is now time for our famed end of show Trinity, which is a brag, a gratitude, and a desire. So, what is your brag? What is something that you are celebrating right now?
The launch of the book, I'll say right now. That's a big one for me. And I've been working on it for 4 years. So it's a really big deal. It's not something I took lightly. I actually just rewrote it after I came out of my coma too. So I spent a lot of time on that. That's my brag. What's the second thing?
One thing you're grateful for.
I'm grateful for every single person that I have encountered in my life. And I'm grateful for those that I encountered in my coma.
Beautiful, beautiful digestion. And lastly, what's one big desire you're holding right now?
One big desire. In all honesty, and I feel very strongly about this, as I feel that we are all one. We need to do good things for this world together, and we have to realize that we are here for a reason, but let's make that reason a beautiful reason by including all of us together.
Popped out by accident. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. I was going to do I keep talking or do I do? I was thinking.
That is the beauty of all of this. Okay. Oops. All right.
Do we want to do that last one again or you got it?
We're live. Just go I missed it. So if you could repeat what you just said.
I just said that, we're all one in this world. And with all the difficulties and stuff going on at the moment and all the strife, I just wish people would be just be cool and just be kind. It's so simple. We're all one. Nobody's better than the other. Nobody's higher than the other. Like it's just we're just one person. We're just one together. That's it.
That's a beautiful desire. Well, so shall your desire be. You're so much better than you can imagine. So thank you. Well, that was incredible. Definitely y'all connect with her. You can find her on LinkedIn. And also thisiswhatshesaid.com.
That's right.
And Might, the book.
Thebookofmight.com.
Thebookofmight.com.
It was kind of trying to make it sound like the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
So people would remember.
That's it. I only remember thebookofmight.com.
Yeah.
And I'm getting it. I want to know. I want to read that. So that was awesome. So good. Y'all, you can, find me at reigoddesses.com and definitely make sure that you subscribe so you never miss an incredible conversation like this. And we'll see you next time. In the meantime, get real, stay real, and we'll see you next time. Bye.